What's he talking about?
Church. She needs to come back and start going to church. He's been talking about this church. So I met with her today. But we'll see. It all depends on who looks at the schedule.
We're live.
She's about this tall.
Okay. It's working.
She's been pretty good to you.
But
She
didn't-
picks them up and makes them work.
Okay. I don't know why it doesn't
Dollar
hang on
Tree.
here.
He has no complaints about his work. He's a good worker.
That's kind of cool. I just realized they
But-
put the
Well-
Valentine with the hearts underneath.
Yeah, but next.
They didn't have hearts underneath.
He's been there for 5 years.
Okay.
So he must be happy.
I'll get the description.
But,
All right. Sorry.
You're good.
and that's what
Thanks
he
for bringing
mentioned,
that.
Facebook does that.
but I get the impression
I'm gonna
he's
do a
kind
few things.
of burning his bridges almost.
Probably.
Yeah. Hey, Dana. Hi.
Well, I mean, he works from 5 to 10. He gets there at 5 o'clock.
Saved by the young'un?
Unloading
Yeah.
stuff, trucks.
I realized my phone was it's at 46, and I figured it wouldn't
Feel
make
like
it. So
asking him, well, you
asked
know,
him
you
bring
do
the
that
backup
all
battery.
time, but how come the shelves are never stocked? You know? But I try to behave myself. You kind of snide comments on myself. Dollar Tree isn't as bad as Dollar General. Dollar General is always, every Dollar General I walked into, it's just a mess. Try to find anything, there's stuff always in the aisles.
Yeah. They don't build their stores big enough for the stuff they have in them. Yeah, they
Same thing with Redfields.
But
Same thing with Redfields.
I've never been in a Dollar General that hasn't been that way. You know, there's one in O'Neill and it's
and they're all over.
the same way. I mean, yeah, they're all over, but, and yeah, you get cheaper stuff, but geez.
It's not $1 anymore, it's $1.25.
Yeah.
Change their name.
$1.25 store.
The 3M, 3M lady, huh?
Well, prayers continue for Jim Taylor. He's doing well, but he's also checked himself out in the hospital. So, Dad is frustrated. She says, my son tends to be very stubborn in his thinking.
Wow. One thing that I did forget to mention this morning, my son lost his grandmother. Yeah, his stepdad's mom passed. She was in her 90s, so it was kind of a blessing, but he flew out. He's down in Kimball right now.
Doesn't matter what age, it's still
Yeah.
a loss.
Yep.
She'd be the only grandparent he
So
had.
Burt
wouldn't she?
Bacharach died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look through, you know, I was aware of a lot of his music. I knew pretty much all the songs by Deanna Warwick were Burt Bacharach songs. But there's so many songs that, you know, you go, he wrote that? He wrote that?
Yeah.
Yep.
The scope of his, I mean, I guess I never really knew that the whole soundtrack to Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid was written by Burt Bacharach.
What was that movie you saw?
No, it was on Broadway. Promises, Promises.
Promises, Promises. It was a Broadway show,
It wasn't a biggie.
but he wrote all the music for it.
Yeah, it's just, he was very prolific.
Another person that's quite prolific is Barry Manilow. He's done a lot of jingles and a lot of other work too.
Well, and then Carole King.
Yes.
What an amazing
Yeah.
voice.
You know, that building, you know, that all of them came from, Kirkpatrick, and
Yeah.
Henry David, and Carole King, and
Neil
Arthur.
Sedaka was in that group.
They were all in that building, and they just were such a creative lot. I mean, they just wrote song after song after song after song. They were just a factory of songs. I love Carole King.
Yeah.
And then one time, you know, I haven't ever seen her live, but one time I think on TV I saw her and James Taylor doing a concert together. Because
Wow.
they were good friends, and I think he wrote music for her, and she wrote music for him. I remember one time there was a concert on television, or I was visiting my folks, there was a concert on television. There's Carole King. I go, let's watch the concert. My folks go, who? Who's Carole King? I go, you don't know Carole King? And then she started singing some of her songs. Like, oh, okay.
Right.
All right, we're almost really starting. We thank Sheila for doing that filming. Next week, we'll probably go back to the sanctuary. I got a text from Annette Cook, and she's been very interested in watching it online. And she says in here, she just can't read. I can't hear, you know, when other people are doing the reading. So she asked if we could go back to the sanctuary.
Now that we have heat.
So, I know you like the table to write things on, but meet the author.
Glenn coming?
Not tonight.
Oh.
Mm,
We're missing Alan.
Well, let
We're missing Marilyn.
Rich be the leader, and
She's not coming either.
She's probably doing Super Bowl.
Does such a fantastic
She might
Oh,
job.
give me a break. So you want me to do leader and interviewers?
Yep.
Okay.
Your voice carries well.
Thank you.
It's that music training you know how to project.
I think so. John, welcome once again.
Well, we'll need to open with prayer.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, John.
Actually, that's right, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, you know, with my first name being John, it works. Okay, so please open to Psalm 23.
I used to have this memorized.
And we'll read it together.
Oh, well, I guess we can open
You ready? Some of you can probably recite it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life. And I love that joke about the kid walking to school, followed by the mother and the daughter.
Yeah.
Well, that's surely goodness. Surely goodness, as Marcy shall call me all the days.
There you go. John, welcome once again. I heard a few of the group discussing the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse as they were coming into the room. I think this means they're anxious to get started with the interview.
All I can say is what the 4 living creatures said. Come.
I must admit that I found some of the reading I did for this session to be depressing. All of these visions about war and death and famine were unpleasant. I hope there's a good reason for this.
It is true that glorious visions of God's grandeur and hymns of praise make more pleasant reading than the opening of the 7 seals. Unfortunately, the churches were facing trials that would test their faith. I had to show them that, in spite of the evidence to the contrary, God is in control. I hope you noticed that the Lamb opened the seals. The Lamb has ultimate power.
I have become so intrigued by your material, I looked ahead a little. 7 plays a big part in chapter 6. There you use 7 seals. The 7 seals but 7 seems to play a major role in other chapters. There are also 7 trumpets and 7 bowls, and they don't seem to deal with God's judgment. However, I notice they don't appear to deal with consecutive situations.
I'm glad you have become so interested. You are right in your observations. My use of these devices to explain my vision came out of a desire to emphasize that no matter how it may appear to the contrary, God acts in history and will bring it to a just conclusion.
Forgive me if this question seems mundane. You can blame it on my farming background. Anyhow, during the opening of the 3rd seal, there was a voice that says, "A quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius." According to the footnote in the Bible, a denarius is worth about 20 cents. It sounds like a bargain to me.
Oh yes, that does need a little explaining. In my time, a denarius was equivalent to a day's wages. A quart of wheat would feed 1 person. Therefore, an entire day's wage would only provide food for 1 member of the family. Or, in the case of barley, several people.
I see. But what about the command, "Do not harm oil and wine"?
You are a detailed person, aren't you? Well, there are several things the churches I was addressing would glean from that phrase. They knew that during a famine, the poor are the first to suffer. The wealthy, who consume most of the oil and wine, are better able to hold back the ravages of suffering. Also, our ancient Jewish tradition taught that the period preceding the coming of the Messiah would be one of tremendous evil and abundant wine.
The 4 horsemen is death, and death is followed by Hades. Does Hades have the same meaning as our word hell?
That depends. What do you mean by hell?
You know, hell is where the sinners are sent. Some people call it separation from God. Good people go to heaven and sinners go to hell to suffer eternal punishment.
Well, given that description, I must answer that hell and Hades are not the same. Hades is a place where the dead go to await the resurrection. You'll recall that when I first saw the one like the Son of Man, he told me that he had the keys of death and Hades. My people knew that Christ holds the power over life and death.
A few times in the past, I've run into people who claim that only 144,000 people will receive salvation. They seem to base that on chapter 7, verse 4. Is that what you meant?
Well, what do you think?
Well, it seems to me that when I read a little further, those who are before the throne come from every nation, and no one can count them because there are so many. So I think that maybe the number is symbolic, like so many other images you employ.
Ah, you're beginning to understand.
I used to be bothered by the image of robes being washed, made white in the blood of the Lamb, but now I understand the meaning of your words. Christ gives the victory. Victory is symbolized by white.
You can see,
You can see, John, that we are beginning to grow in our understanding. Thank you so much for being with us. Wait, I still want to know about the Great Tribulation.
patience. Chapters 8 through 18 deal with that. In the meantime, hold on to the knowledge that God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Okay, so let's start looking at the scripture. So we'll start with chapter 6, and we'll look at verses 6, 1 through 8. So here we have the first 4 seals that are opened by the Lamb. And before we read that, I want to look up the references that the resource book have. They refer to scriptures in Zechariah. So in your Bibles, if you can look up Zechariah, which is one of the minor prophets. It's right after Haggai. So first, chapter 1, verses 7 through 11. On the 24th day of the 11th month, the month of Shabbat, in the 2nd year of Darius, the word of the Lord came to the prophet Zechariah, son of Bechiah, son of Iddo. And Zechariah said, in the night I saw a man riding on a red horse. He was standing among the myrtle trees in the glen. Behind him were red, sorrel, and white horses. Then I said, what are these, my Lord? And the angel who talked with me said to me, I will show you what they are. So the man who was standing among the myrtle trees answered, they are those whom the Lord has sent to patrol the earth. Then they spoke to the angel of the Lord who was standing among the myrtle trees. We have patrolled the earth, and lo, the whole earth remains at peace. And then chapter 6, verses 1 through 7. And again I looked up and saw 4 chariots coming out from between 2 mountains, mountains of bronze. The first chariot had red horses. The second chariot had black horses, the third chariot white horses, and the fourth chariot dappled gray horses. Then I said to the angel who talked with me, what are these, my Lord? The angel answered me, these are the 4 winds of heaven going out after presenting themselves before the Lord of all the earth. The chariot with the black horses goes toward north country. The white ones go toward west country. The dappled ones go toward south country. When the steeds came out, they were impatient to get off and patrol the earth. And he said, Go patrol the earth. So they patrolled the earth. See a similarity between the prophecy of Zechariah and the opening verses of chapter 6 in Revelation? What's the similarity? The horses, right? The different colored horses. You even have similar colors. So let's break down what they might mean. So, what is the color of the first horse that we see? White. And what is the rider holding?
A bow.
Bow. So what might that symbolize? What is white generally a symbol of? Purity, but in a lot of cases it also symbolizes victory. And the bow, as a resource book tells us, the bow was an instrument of war used by the Parthians. And the Parthians at the time of John was probably the greatest threat to Rome. And there was a strong chance that they could, and part of the reason why they were such a great threat was their use of the bow. So, this particular rider symbolizes conquest. The danger of being conquered, of losing one's freedom. How about the second rider? What color is the horse?
Red.
Red. And what does he hold? What does the rider hold?
Great sword.
Sword. So, you have the red color and you have a sword. What do you think that symbolizes? Well, what is a sword used in? Battle or war, right? And what is blood? What is red the color of? Blood. So, war and bloodshed. Okay. Third horseman. What color is the horse?
Black.
Black. And what is the rider hold?
Scales.
Scales. So what do scales do? They measure. So with war, when countries are at war, what do they generally suffer from? Famine. So this is famine, where they have to go through ration. Why black? Well, what happens when countries go through famine? People die. You have plagues. What?
Would be sorrow.
Sorrow. Yeah. It's not an easy time. So notice the way it's not just black. it's black as sackcloth. So there is sorrow, or there's frustration, or there's angst, or there's worry, there's grief. It's the image, you have the image of people in sorrow that their family and their friends are dying of hunger, right? Okay, the last one. What's the color of the horse? Pale green. What does the rider hold? Trick question. Nothing. This is death, right? Or color pale green. To be gross, what is that a color of? Rotting flesh. So it isn't just death, it's pestilence. Death and pestilence, or the image of carrion and other animals eating on the decaying, rotting flesh of people who died.
So why in some versions is it just a pale horse instead of pale green, or?
The pale is to, I guess, to denote sickness, probably pestilence. What goes on with pestilence? Because if you have a lot of rotting flesh around. Again, these are not comforting images, are they? But one thing we can see about all these different writers and the dangers they represent, these are human dangers, aren't they? In other words, they are dangers that are caused by human activity. Humans go to war with one another. Humans conquer one another. Humans kill one another. Humans cause other nations. Nations cause other nations to experience famine. They take away all the resources. What is the first thing in battle? What is the first thing you do in battle? Is you lay siege on all your opposing armies, sources and people as sources, resources for food or for strength. You starve them out. You cause them to be poor. You cause them to suffer. So this is, in many ways, these writers are doing are the result of human evil. But who are they sent by?
Jesus.
Yeah. They're sent by God. So what does that tell us? That tells us that even our own actions, even the evils we do, are not outside the control of God. God may allow it, and God knows, and even as much as we hate to admit it, ordains the result of our evil. In other words, our evil results in things that God is not just aware of, but allows to happen. That is the scary part. That is the troubling part of these 4 seals. It isn't just It's not God punishing us, but allowing the consequences of our evil to overtake us. That makes sense? So this is all happening on earth. So the first 4 seals has to deal with earth, actions on earth. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are covering all the earth. And that's the connection, that is John's connection with the prophet Zechariah. Is in the second passage I read from Zechariah. The horses go to all the different directions, the 4 directions. Remember, we talked about 4 being the representative of earth, the 4 directions on earth, the 4 seasons. It's earth. So this is happening on earth. This is earthly domain. With the next 2 seals, 5 and 6, with the opening of that, then the attention goes back to heaven. Right? So the opening of the 5th seal. So let's, there's a number of readings we have here. So I'm going to go, and I'm just going to read these instead of asking you guys to read so that people watching online can hear. So the first reading comes from Psalm 6:3. My soul is struck with terror, while you, O Lord, how long? And then Psalm 13. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? How long shall my enemies be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep the sleep of death. And my enemy will say, I have prevailed. My foes will rejoice because I am shaken. But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. And then Psalm 35, verses 17 through 28. How long, O Lord, will you look on? Rescue me from their ravages, my life from the lions. Then I will thank you in the great congregation, in the mighty throng I will praise you. Do not let my treacherous enemies rejoice over me, or those who hate me without cause wink the eye. For they do not speak peace, but they conceive deceitful words against those who are quiet in the land. They open wide their mouths against me. They say, aha, aha, our eyes have seen it. You have seen, O Lord, do not be silent. O Lord, do not be far from me. Wake up, bestir yourself for my defense, for my cause, my God and my Lord. Vindicate me, O Lord, my God, according to your righteousness, and do not let them rejoice over me. Do not let them say to themselves, aha, we have our heart's desire. Do not let them say, we have swallowed you up. Let all those who rejoice in my calamity be put to shame and confusion. Let those who exalt themselves against me be clothed with shame and dishonor. Let those who desire my vindication shout for joy and be glad and say evermore, great is the Lord, who delights in the welfare of his servant. Then my tongue shall tell of your righteousness and of your praise all day long. Then Isaiah 6, chapter 11. Then I said, how long, O Lord? And he said, until cities lie waste without inhabitants, and houses without people, and the land is utterly desolate. And then Daniel 12. Verse 6. One of them said to the man clothed in linen who was upstream, how long shall it be until the end of these wonders? And finally, in Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 2, O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not listen, or cry to you violence, and you will not save? So what is the similarity we see between these verses I read from the Old Testament and John's words opening the sixth seal, or the fifth seal?
How long?
How long? Who is it said by?
The martyrs.
The martyrs. Where are the martyrs?
Under the altar.
Or under the throne? What is a martyr?
Someone who died for a righteous cause.
Right. So in John's, the martyrs in John, people who died doing what? Died for what?
Testimony of Jesus.
Yeah. For their belief in God through Jesus Christ. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So they are calling. So what are they waiting for? What are they saying? How long for? What is it that they want to have happen that they're waiting for?
They want their blood avenged.
Yeah, they want justice, right? How long do we see until we see justice for what happened to us?
A little longer.
Right. So the answer to this question becomes threefold. What is the first the answer? What is the first thing? What's going to happen to them? White robe.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll be clothed in a white robe, which means white means what?
Victory.
Victory, right? So they will have victory. So that's a promise, right? But to their answer, how long, is a while longer, right? And there's no determination of how long that's going to be. So the answer is, don't worry about the calendar. It's not your place to know when this is going to happen, right? You just have to be patient. So the second answer is that there's no calendar. And the third answer So in other words, they're not, who's in control of when this is going to happen? Are
God.
they?
God.
God. So they're not in control. And then, if you look they were told to rest a little longer until the number would be complete, both of their fellow servants and of their brothers and sisters who were soon to be killed, and they themselves had been killed. So the third answer is, not only are you not in control and you're going to wait a lot longer, there's going to be more martyrs. In other words, God isn't done yet. So they're waiting. So there's going to be more people who die in the faith. There's going to be more people who suffer. There's going to be more people who say, how long? And God is in control of that. But then then it moves from that to, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 sealed out of every tribe of the people of Israel. Why 144,000? What is that symbol?
12 times 1,000 times 12.
Okay. So 12,000 times 12. Right?
Yeah.
Why 12?
12 tribes.
12 tribes of Israel. Why does this seem to be an impossible number? Any ideas? Why does it dream of the 12 tribes of Israel being restored seem impossible? Give you the answer. In the before Israel was divided into two kingdoms, before it became Ephraim also called Israel to the north, and Judah in the south. The 12 tribes were together. After the division, the northern kingdom had 10 tribes, where the southern kingdom had 2. The northern kingdom was captured by Assyria. Right? Assyria had a policy that they never wanted the people that they conquered to ever gather strength again. So they would take the inhabitants of the country that they just conquered and scatter them throughout their whole empire. so that they would never ever gather together as a people again. You ever heard of the phrase, the 10 lost tribes of Israel? Or the diaspora? That's what is meant by it, is that after Israel was conquered by Assyria, those 10 tribes were lost. They were assimilated into the Assyrian Empire, so that they were no longer a people. Those 10 tribes were lost to history. The messianic hope, the hope of Israel, the hope of Zion, is that when the Messiah comes, those tribes, all 12 tribes, will be restored, will be found again. Even those 10 lost tribes that have been scattered. So, and John is speaking to that prophecy, to that hope, when he sees 12,000 from each tribe, all 12 tribes, even the 10 tribes that have been lost. So this number doesn't just represent completeness. It represents restoration. This is where taking the book of Revelation too literally misses a point. There are a number of people who read the book of Revelation and think there's only going to be 144,000 people saved. And that misses the point. The point of this number is that Israel, the chosen people, all the chosen people, all the people who believe in God, who have worshiped God and remained faithful to God, are going to be restored. There is a reason why this is part of the fifth seal, where they say, how long? It's going to happen. How long until we receive justice? The other question inherent in that is, how long is it going to be until we're whole again? As a nation, how long is it going to be until we're whole again? Until the 12 tribes have been restored, that we are a people, and all those who have been lost or scattered by our enemies will come home. What does this mean for us today? There is a reason why the nation of Israel has a policy, why people come, that they're allowed people from wherever they are, if they're Jewish, they are promised a place to live in Israel. It's part of that hope of Zion, of everybody being restored back, of the nation of Israel being made whole. And there's a reason why it's hard for the nation of Israel. And it isn't just because it isn't just politics. It isn't just power. There is a deep spiritual connection of why they want to make that happen. The problem is, and I'm not get far in this because it's politics, the problem is that when people come home, are promised a place, what does that do to the people who aren't Jewish? It displaces them. And there's tension, and there is war, and there is battles. John is talking about that too. You see the interconnection here? We're not meant to take the book of Revelation literal. Because John is using symbolism, John is using analogy to the Old Testament. But that does not mean that we don't understand the implications that it has even for today. In our theology, in our way of thinking, in the way we act toward each other, the way we live with each other. So this seems to be a limited number. And in certain ways it is, because it speaks about the restoration of Israel. But it's also meant to be a number that symbolizes completeness. That when it all happens, a resolution, a reconciliation, a restoration. So with the fifth seal, we find that promise. But then with the sixth seal, we have something else going on. That promise is then extended. Because in the opening of the sixth seal, how many people does John see? A great multitude. So many that what?
Can't count them.
You can't count them. So they're innumerable. And where are they coming from? All over. So the promise isn't no longer limited to the restoration of Israel, is it? The promise becomes universal. So putting the opening of the fifth and the sixth seal together, John is also using another device that is from the Old Testament, which means that Israel, or the restoration of Israel, leads the way. In other words, when Israel is restored, we also see that the world as a whole is restored. It isn't just the promise that God has for Israel isn't just limited to Israel. Israel is God's chosen people, but chosen for what? Chosen to be a lamp or an example of how God loves the whole world. God doesn't just love Israel, God loves the whole world, but God's love for the whole world can be seen through God's love for Israel. So instead of Israel against the world, it's Israel leading the world as a symbol for the world. Does that make sense? That's how as Christians we can bring that in together and feel part of the promises that we see in the Old Testament being just limited to Israel. Is that through Jesus, that promise, all those promises that God made to Abraham, Isaac, all the patriarchs, and throughout the history of Israel in the Old Testament, all those promises that God made through the prophets suddenly become real, not just for Israel, not for just for the people chosen, but for everyone. It becomes universal. So, chapter 7. Then one of the elders addressed me, saying, "Who are these robed in white, and where have they come from?" I said to him, "Sir, you are the one that knows." Then he said to me, "These are they who have come out of the great ordeal. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." So again, we see the white robes, right? And who has white robes?
The martyr.
The martyr. But in this particular passage, who? Those who have washed them in the blood of the Lamb. If you take a garment and you wash it in blood, does it turn white? No, pink or red. Right. So this seems to be anachronistic, right? But what this is symbolic. Is white symbolizes what?
Victory.
Victory. So we get victory through what Jesus has done for us. But what is significant here is who's washing the garments?
People who have
Right. They're washing their own garments in the blood of the Lamb. So their action is required. So they, in order to wash, in order to have victory, must wash their garments in the blood of the Lamb. They must take upon themselves the fullness of Christ in order to find the victory that they're seeking, that they're waiting for, that they're saying, "How long, O Lord?"
They have to believe that the blood that Christ shed on the cross was shed for them, and that
Right.
and that blood cleanses them of their sin and
Right.
iniquities.
Which makes actually common sense, right? We unless we believe, if we don't believe that Jesus saved us, then are we saved by Jesus?
No.
Just by the very nature of it, how can we say that we're saved by Jesus if we don't believe that Jesus saves us? Right? It's not that Jesus says, okay, you're saved, you're not saved. Right? Jesus is saying, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do. It is finished." And Jesus dies on the cross. And Jesus dies for everyone, but not everyone accepts that. And what God says is allows, what John is saying, God is allowing those who believe that Jesus died for them, to have the victory that they seek. And those who don't believe will experience the consequences of their belief or their disbelief. They're not going to have garments clothed in white because essentially they don't believe that their garments can be washed clean. Does that make sense? So we close with for this reason, they are before the throne of God and worship him day and night within his temple. And the one who is seated on the throne will shelter them. They will hunger no more and thirst no more. The sun will not strike them or any scorching heat. For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd. And he will guide them to springs of water, the water of life. And God will wipe away every tear from their eye. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me beside still waters. He
Restores my soul.
He leads. He causes me to lay down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in right paths for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. Set the table before me in the presence of enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows, and surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days. There is an interconnection of the Bible that comes out in John so clearly it almost takes your breath away. End of tonight's lesson. Any questions, comments, complaints?
Can you encapsulate the seventh seal?
We haven't got to it yet.
Ah. Same bad time, same bad channel.
What we see is what is happening at the end of the opening of the sixth seal is kind of an interlude. So now we have visions that will set up the opening of the seventh seal. This is where it is kind of complicated because you expect everything to go just smoothly, and John changes things up a little bit. So you have the opening of the six seals, and then you have an interlude. And we're in the interlude. And the interlude is rather long. Anything else?
Kind of amazing how Revelation is kind of borne out in the Matrix film.
I saw The Matrix a long time ago, and quite frankly, I don't remember it enough to make that connection. So I'll leave it up to you.
There you go.
I'll trust your word on that.